We're good to go.
All right, I'm Joe Prinster. I'm the board chair. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And first item is a roll call of those present.
Stephen Titus.
Here.
Joseph Prinster.
Here.
Michael Bailey.
Here.
Next item is approval of the minutes that were sent out with the board packet. Were there any comments or?
I noticed one minor thing. I think it says on there that Kyle was in attendance, but I think he was on
Okay.
Kyle McKetty.
Kyle was in attendance. He was virtual.
Right. And anything else? So can I entertain a motion to accept him with that? Information?
I'll make a motion to accept the meeting minutes from, what was it, December 19th,
19th, yes.
with the one modification of the attendance of Kyle.
Seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So that's passed.
Excellent.
Very good.
Thank you.
Next would be the public hearing on the code updates.
Yeah, and if I could, staff has a couple of late changes we'd like to just bring before the board now, if that's okay. The first one I want to bring attention to is it was just a minor addition in a deck exception. There was a word "and" that was omitted. We put that back in there. It was just a clerical mistake. But the more important one is that we got some feedback talking some more about the impact resistance requirements for shingle roofing. And we created some language that that puts parameters on how we handle it if we have a situation where there's a mismatch between what's available and an impact resistance. So if they have an existing roofing and the question is, what thresholds do we say you need to have an impact resistance versus when can you put something on that's matching that maybe falls short? And so we talked about it a bit internally, and we are proposing language that says that if you're doing work that's no greater than 200 square feet or no greater than 30% of the roof area, that would be the threshold by which you would have. If it's below those thresholds, then you can match the color and style. But if it's above those thresholds, then you have to find a way to use impact resistant materials for that.
So it's whichever is greater.
Whichever is smaller.
Yeah. So the 200.
200. So if you're doing 100, if you're doing 100 square feet or 199 square feet, you don't have, you can use non-impact resistant shingles to match. If it's over 200 or larger, or if it's 30% of the total area or larger. Excuse me, I take that back, 25%. We changed a language here says 30, but we want to match the same 25% threshold that's elsewhere in the code. So that's what we're proposing, is to say 25%. So I want to bring that to your attention because that was a last minute change we put there, and there's text that reflects that on both the IRC side as well as the IPC side.
Not really objecting, I just want to understand. So if the roof is 1,000 square feet,
then
which one's going to apply?
Then you'd be limited to 200 square feet.
200.
Yeah, the smaller of the two. With that, that's the only changes that we've proposed since we met last. We cleaned up a couple of the, as you can see in the packet, we cleaned up a couple of things that were raised earlier. There was a number of questions that have sort of come through. I don't know if you want me to address any of those things now, or you want to approach that.
Well, I'm not sure if anybody else had questions. I raised some of those, and it mostly was, some of them were for clarification, things I didn't understand because it's just not in the industry well enough to understand. If any of them are creating substantive changes that we ought to discuss or might be, then I think that's worthy of discussion.
Yeah.
A number of them were clerical, and those don't need discussion.
So I guess I'll comment that we went through and looked at each of those. There was some questions about the Zero Energy Ready Home program. I can address those separately, but there was quite a few things that were brought up by both you and some members of the public regarding the text of Chapter 1. And there's a bunch of the language recommendations and questions that I agree with. However, what we have in our code right now is verbatim what's in the published codes. And it's a little confusing because we pulled Chapter 1 text from several different sources. We have the several different books that we pulled from. We also pulled from some of the state requirements, and they also have some Chapter 1 language. And there's much of that where the language, if you were to write it again from fresh text, you would do it a little differently and it might be a little better. But those things that are in there are just part of the published code. And, from an editorial perspective, not all are perfect, but I think the meaning of them is relatively understood. So staff isn't recommending that we change any of that language. I suppose some of those changes, maybe we might go back and recommend they change it at the national level. So just improve the tech. That happens every year. The administrative chapters get reviewed every 3 years, and there's edits.
People are hearing, people can't hear.
Says I'm
Ron
muted.
is muted.
So my computer's muted, but you should be able to hear me over the room speakers. Is anybody else muted? Are people hearing us?
I can hear you fine. This is Kathy, staff.
Okay. It looks to me like my laptop that's in front. Okay, it looks like some people are hearing us. So, okay, looks like our room is broadcasting. So, all right, thank you.
So my response to that is any of those introducing potential discrepancies or uncertainties that may become a problem either at enforcement time or for a designer who might read it one way and say, oh, this means this, and go through essentially an expensive series of design steps that really are right because the language wasn't clean.
I don't believe so. I'll look to staff to see if Heather, do you have any?
Heather Dodge, Boulder County staff. Most of those, I went through and kind of parsed through all of your comments. Most of those are, as Ron said, they're straight out of the published code. There are further clarifications later in the code that address the specifics, like retaining walls and things like that. So most of those are going to be found either under the structural section or perhaps the soils section, things like that. So the administrative reference is in the section that you had questions about. But the actual documentation requirements or what needs to be on those construction documents and reflected in the field is what's in those later chapters.
All right. Well, I think that's my main concern is that the whole process be as streamlined as we can reasonably make it.
It's also in the definitions, and that's also a later chapter. It's chapter 2 and almost all the other published codes. And we may have added the definitions, but we didn't really delete it.
If you'd like, I could comment a little bit about those questions about the zero energy ready.
There's someone else can't hear.
Something on their end.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. If you'd like, I could comment a little bit about the questions about the zero energy ready home program. So I went back and spoke to a couple people who are experts in this field and just make sure I wasn't missing something. And we talked especially about the comparison between the zero energy ready home program and Energy Star and what we get for these things. And there are When you take each example, you can get slightly different variations. But it was clear from the DOE's determination that the zero energy ready home programs are typically about 30% more efficient than the 2021 IEC, and about 20% better than Energy Star homes. So there is a good uptick. The zero energy ready home program also has requirements for putting ductwork in conditioned spaces, which has a lot of benefits. The zero energy ready home program addresses water heating efficiency, whereas the Energy Star program does not. And there's also requirements for the lighting appliances that have to be Energy Star qualified, where in an Energy Star home, it's just the bath fans that trigger that. So there are more requirements in terms of compliance. And it seems like, especially from some of the comments we've got back, seems like we still have some work to do to make sure our raters are educated, trained, and looking for everything in a consistent way. This is not unique to Boulder County. This is something that is an industry-wide effort, but it looks like we have some additional work to do there. But I believe pretty clearly that program is getting us a lot of value, and recommending that we continue. Another topic that came up kind of separately from that was a variety of sort of environmental health issues. And this has become very apparent after the Marshall Fire. We've had, unfortunately, quite a few examples of homes that survived, but that have toxicity issues from the results of the fire. That is a very, very understudied piece of this wildland urban interface and home survival. I would say the first big studies are coming out now, and it's clear that there's work to be done. The hazards from wildfire smoke, wildfire itself, toxicity, that has been pretty well studied. We know that wildfire smoke has a lot of things that are really bad. How that impacts homes that survive, there just haven't been enough examples of that. One of the things that we do know is that homes that are really well air sealed, homes that meet a high performance standard, they tend to do better because they tend to exclude those toxins the same way they exclude cold air in the winter and warm air in the summer. Less air infiltration, air infiltration rate brings with it a lot of toxicity. So we do know that homes that are better performance do better. But I think there is quite a bit to do still to understand that issue and to make sure we're protecting ourselves. There also was some of those issues, I think, that are part of the public health realm and not part of the building code. So that's a sort of a separate piece. And I know they looked at that stuff after each event, and that was one of the big issues that they looked at. About the site cleanup to make sure that some of that toxicity that made its way into the soil and homes, and make sure they weren't spreading that around and getting that stuff safely taken care of. So that was actually a pretty major effort after the Marshall Fire, was to get the sites themselves back to a spot where they were safe for the rebuilding. But there is this difficult spot in the middle where the homes are still in there, but they've been contaminated to the point where they've become dangerous for the occupants. And that's something we haven't really ever addressed with the building codes. I'm not sure how you do that, but it's an issue that clearly it's a problem for those who are in that situation.
When a home survives a fire, is there a building department aspect to approving it for reentry or reoccupation?
Well, so in cases where the home has had damage, we do a damage assessment of the home. We look at it and we figure out what building permits are needed to restore the home to a livable condition again. And that's common in structure fires, normal structure fires, where you have a fire in part of the house. And then, it's extinguished. We send an inspector out and we figure out the permits and then they do repairs and move on. And that maintains safe occupancy. In places where the place where it's most confusing is the place where from outward appearances, you have a home that looks untouched. And in fact, we went to at least one of those after the Marshall Fire. We looked at the house and you could see a couple of minor spots on the exterior siding where there was a little bit of melting, but for the most part, the house looked like it went through unscathed. Then you go inside the house and you start to see, oh, there's ash on a lot of spots. There's some soot markings and there's a really funny smell in this house. And then it's a little less clear what to do. And I know for a fact that some people who have been stuck in that spot have a very difficult time navigating insurance claims and navigating the whole process of getting back to a safe thing. So it doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, it's pretty hard on those that have been involved.
So how does the health department overlay on that effort? Are they also coming in and inspecting?
They're looking at these things, but there is no clear public health policy that they can fall back on to measure indoor air quality safety from this perspective. There's no standard. There are people trying to write some standards. And in fact, I know that some of the people who wrote into us about this topic are involved with the groups that are trying to come up with some kind of standard that can be used to determine, is there a loss? What level of loss is, and what the responsibilities are of the various insurance companies to do something about it. I think that's the difficult process about, and that's people work.
So there's no air quality test? I mean, you can test for meth or other things like that, especially if there's a forced air heating and cooling system, you're going to draw that stuff all through the system and it's pretty much wrecked after that. There's no cleaning it.
Yeah, right.
But there's no way to
There's plenty of ways to test for it. In fact, I know that the author of those comments has, stacks of paper documentation where researchers have come in and done sampling and said, okay, here's what we're finding. But then the question is, well, what standard do you say that compares to? We know that, for structural loads, we know, okay, well, this is what it's got to
or you
do.
don't have a baseline standard
We
to
don't have a requirement.
I see. Oh, a baseline requirement.
Yeah, yeah. So, so some of the things that we do right now in our building code are designed to put you in a good place from an air quality perspective for the new construction. So things like ventilation systems in the house and things like in the Zero Energy Home program, this requirements for indoor air quality go considerably further than that. But then, but for this kind of damage, there really isn't anything to point to say this is the standard it has to meet. I think it's worth pursuing, but as of yet, we don't have anything to point to.
Radon was one thing brought up. Is that radon something you look for when you go back into one of these damaged homes?
So the radon requirements in the code are about the system. So we require new homes to have a radon system. We require them to, there's an appendix in the IRC that we have adopted or recommending for adoption that requires a passive system that is capable of easy conversion to an active system. So it's basically all the piping's in place. There's wiring for a fan. There's a location designated for the fan, but there's no fan installed. And because many homes work fine with just passive radon collection, but then we leave it up to the occupants to test for that radon, and if they need it, to install that fan. But we sort of set them up for success, but we don't actually require an active radon system. Michelle.
Michelle Huebner, Boulder County staff. So that would be for new houses
Yes,
that we do that with. Yeah, yes.
And would you then inspect in a house that has one installed? Do you go back in a damaged situation, and is that on your checklist to inspect?
If the radon system were damaged, we would take a note of that and expect that the permit for the repairs would include that repair. It's actually not often that we see a radon system damaged in a house that's otherwise intact because of its location. Often it's underneath a basement slab. It's the safest thing in the house.
Yeah.
Okay. You're gonna be dealing with that a lot in California with all those fires.
Yes. Yeah, a real problem and a place I expect us to be understanding better as time goes on. So I guess with that, have I answered all the questions that the board currently has?
Yeah, did you have any more?
I guess I wanted to say, acknowledge, I thought that you did a good job on the crawl space definition change.
Thank you.
That the generator change and the proposal to do 30 or the change to 30% on the houses, 500 to 1,000 square additions, a 30% improvement in our earth rating seemed to be very clear. I was just curious, does that include solar? Is solar exempt from the 30% or not?
No, they could use solar to achieve that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good work.
So I guess with that in mind, maybe I'll leave it to you, but I think maybe perhaps opening it up for public comment might be appropriate.
I think that's fine. So I would so do that, are there any, let's see, what's our mechanism for soliciting public
I'm gonna
comments?
stop this sharing here so you can see it. Let's see. Is that
Is Kathy gonna manage that?
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, well, it's the appropriate time for public comment and how do we call for public comment? How do they notify us if they have comment?
Yeah, you can just open it up for public comment and see if there's anybody that is wanting to speak.
All right, I'll open this up for public comment. So yeah, put in the chat if anybody has something that they want to contribute.
Yeah, anybody online, if you just raise your hand, we'll be able to see that you wish to comment. And I'll just state for the record that there is nobody from the public in the hearing room today. So I'm not seeing any hands yet. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to contribute?
I'm not seeing anybody either, Ron.
So I guess then the next step would be to formally close the public comment.
We'll close the public comment period then. And at this point, it's appropriate to close a motion to refer this to the.
You can deliberate further or this is a suggested motion. I believe I put in my staff report.
I may not have printed that out. Sorry if you have. Let's see. Visual of that.
Yeah. Just taking a second. to pull that up. Hey, do you have a copy of that motion someplace? Do you remember where that is?
Yeah, it
It's
should be
in
in
this-
the packet. Let me pull it up real quick.
It was in the staff report.
So yeah.
I believe it's the last 2 pages, isn't it?
Yeah, page 202 and 203. Thanks, Heather.
Someone share it. please.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the very last sentence in the entire staff packet.
No pressure on it.
Still got it on top.
Okay. Thank you.
See it okay? Make it bigger.
That's a staff recommendation that the board of review recommend to the.
Yeah, so the language we believe the board review recommends.
Board of County Commissioners approval.
Yes.
That goes to Actually better. So I guess first is there any other discussion? Just in general about the edits or status of the package? Nope. Well, then I'd entertain a motion that Steve, since you
All right.
poses, pretty much start
Yeah.
there.
Make a motion to recommend, staff recommends that the Board of Review recommend to the Board of County Commissioners approval of docket BORC -24 -0001. A second?
I'll second.
All right, and then any specific discussion of the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimously recommended to the commissioners. Excellent. Look at this one. Erica, are you on our call?
I don't believe that Erica's on. This is Liana Larimore, Assistant County Attorney.
Thank you. Liana, is there anything else that you're seeing we need to accomplish in today's hearing?
No, I think that was it.
Wonderful.
Can we mention again when the board will be taking this up, the Board of Commissioners will be taking this up?
Yeah, this is scheduled for, to come before the Boulder County Commissioners on, let's see, let me get a picture right here. It is on Thursday, January 23rd at 9 a.m. in the Boulder County Courthouse Hearing Room, which is in the historic courthouse building on the 3rd floor. There is an online version of that as well. The Boulder County hearing or the commissioner's webpage has links to how you participate virtually, but it is going to be both virtual and in person for anyone who would like to attend. And that meeting also just get published. That meeting information also gets published in the local papers as well as being on their staff on their webpage. But again, the 23rd of this month at 9 a.m.
And are they taking any public?
They will be taking public comment, yes.
So.
Yeah.
Good to know. Very good. Do we have any other business for the board?
I'll just mention a couple things, if I could. Once we're complete with this whole code cycle, there are a couple other things just to bring you to tune that are coming. One is an update of some structural requirements once the state engineers have given their final blessing to the new structural maps, those wind and snow load maps. So that'll be coming. We also will have a wildfire code that'll be coming down from the state. We're not exactly sure what that timing looks like, but it'll be coming down. I'm expecting in the next couple of months, and then we'll have 3 months to adopt it. So those are on the relatively short term. And then I will just put out there that not too distant from getting all those things wrapped up, we will be looking at starting a process for the 2024 codes. So we were a little bit behind schedule and getting to this one. We're going to try to keep our momentum going and get onto the 2024 codes, as well as that'll give us our opportunity to look at adoption of some of the requirements for energy codes that are coming down from the state level as well. So they have some state level energy codes that'll be heading our way. So some interesting stuff on the horizon. Just wanted to sort of tune you into that. That's what's coming. And with that, that's all I have for today.
And those are just in general, like specific times that they're coming to us.
They have some schedules out. I don't know that I have them at the top of my head, but I'm expecting all of those. The wildfire code, most specifically, I think is going to be within the next 3 months. I think they have a 2020. I think they have a 2025 deadline, but I'm expecting it. Maybe it'll be sooner. I'm not sure. I guess I'm hesitant to go on the record with any specifics.
attended some of the meetings. Their goal is to have the draft finalized midsummer. So it's like late June or early July.
Ways out.
And then the state engineers, I'm expecting around the same time, maybe a little sooner. So
Have the 24 ICC codes been?
they are
Issued.
been published and available. It's still the first printing. Sometimes I like to wait a little bit until the second printing because they catch a lot of things that are wrong in that first one. But that should be readily available to us.
There are some significant changes in the formatting of the 24 codes. And they are available on the website with the similar links that we provided early on. Those links will reflect changes pretty much in real time as far as errata goes. So even before it gets published in print, they're on the website very quickly.
Has anybody adopted those?
The 2024s.
Yeah.
I think Larimer is working on it presently. I believe I've read that on their website. And I can't remember if it was Lafayette or Louisville that was, there was some chatter about them moving toward it. They're also, I know Louisville especially is under the gun because they're still processing a lot of Marshall fire permits. So that's a priority over the new code. So
So that was just for information. All right. Any other business for the border review?
I guess that's not part of the border review.
No, there could be entertaining a motion for adjournment.
Oh, yeah, there was that.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. There we go. All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really,
Yeah, but gavel, right? I got. Yeah.
Oh, ow.
Yeah.
The whole can.
Just don't get in the habit of doing that.
I hope we have painful mode. I've been there.